uh, the portfolio of products. That means very, very few in the whole global market has actually done CPENT and certified. Jayant is one of them. And Jayant has been a professor, and I'm so happy that Jayant has turned into training cybersecurity professionals. He has trained thousands of people through EC Council and other ways that he has been. And we have spoken and we have interacted with Jayant, and very passionate, very research oriented. Keep on identifying, finding out ways how to make not just the teaching interactive, but also the whole lab exercises interesting. So Jayant is a MTech with multiple certifications from EC Council, has been training, and he's the right person because that's why we haven't even incorporated the certification, because one is that certification cost is very high. Second is that uh, many people, the passing percentage of this CPENT exam is very, very low. So we don't want to take that chance. That's why at the end of this module, Jayant will be designing a certification exam, which is self-designed. It's not the EC Council, but if somebody says that, okay, let us look at the pricing of the certification, we can do that. But that is not mandatory to get your master's. But CEH certification is mandatory. CPENT is our internal final exam, right? So it's not just the exam that you should learn. At this age, we don't have to say that. You all have experience. You're all moving up the ladder. And I know, congratulations on Shweta to, in the short span, she has moved, become leading cybersecurity practices. So we have such good news. That means they are not just focusing on the modules, but focusing on the skill, practicing, applying that in their daily life and improving their skill set. That is the whole intention. So CPENT, it's very lab heavy. There are multiple pen testing environments that is there in the iLabs. And Jayant is going to lead you to enjoy that learning, right? And this become, because today, if you know vulnerability assessment and pen testing alone, you can become an independent consultant and earn money, right? Money, if money is your motto, or something else is your motto, but still CPENT would become your skill training as part of the masters. So Jayant, thank you so much for leading this session. Looking forward to a great session. I am in the campus, I'm in some other session. That's why I'm standing and talking. Okay. Okay. So
no problem.
Welcome everyone.
Thanks a ton for the warm welcome, Ms. Sindhu ma'am. And I think almost all of you are here. And before we begin, I just want to confirm, my dear friends, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
Yay. Okay, all right. Very good. So, thank you so much for all the wishes, and thanks a ton for the warm welcome. And my dear friends, for the next 5 weekends, we are going to focus on one of the most challenging course and the contents that are going to make you a real life pen tester ready. As part of this particular curriculum, I'm so happy that Race Reva took this initiative of making candidates ready for specific roles, and CPENT is really a good choice to make sure that it opens more doors and opportunities for candidates who are looking forward to work in the field of cybersecurity. As you all know, cybersecurity is vast and there are so many domains that you can pick. Pen testing is one quick way in which you can grab opportunities to work with organizations and take advantage of learning things on the go. My dear friends, apart from different certifications that AC Council provide, CPENT is bit different. So the way how CH is designed, it is quite beginner level certification that makes anyone ready with set of tools that they can use on different areas of cybersecurity. And if you are really looking forward to build your career in the field of pen testing.
Some disturbance.
Yes, yes. Is it fine now?
No.
I know from where it is. Is there an option to?
Can we please all on mute?
Yes,
Just
I
leaving
request all
chat.
the attendees to please mute your mics. All right. I think now it's good. Very
It's
good.
good.
So, my dear friends, instead of turning on your mic, you can drop a message in the chat so that I will be able to know whether you are able to hear me or whether you are able to see the screen or not. So let's begin with this one. My dear friends, are you all able to hear me? Are you able to are you able to see my screen? If everything is good and if you want me to begin the session, please drop B in the chat.
So you can begin the session.
Okay, okay. Yep, all right. So the 5 days plan is going to be like this. Each and everything that we cover as part of this course is very important for us to acquire a skill, and at the same time, this particular exam is going to be challenging. So I will help you in giving you some tips on how easy it will be if you are ready with the right skills to clear this examination. Anyhow, as this is not a compulsion, it is always important to note that different skills that we have learned as part of CEH course are going to be utilized in this particular course. So major tools and techniques that you have learned from the previous module will help you a lot at this stage. Just to make sure that you are able to apply the skills that you have learned from the previous module, today we are going to take up a little bit of challenging task where you can take advantage of techniques that you have learned from the previous sessions to hack into that box and enumerate it to understand how we can actually take advantage of all different enumeration techniques or exploitation techniques that we have learned from the previous module. I will talk about that in a short while, but let's move on to the actual content and the plan for the next 5 days. So today we will be moving on to 4 different modules for this particular course, and CPENT comes with around 14 different modules, but today we will be focusing on 4 different modules. And apart from all these 14 different modules, there are certain core modules which are heavy in practical. And not only the actual 14 modules, there are some self-study modules too, which are very important and need more attention. So instead of leaving that as a self-study module, I want to take advantage of grabbing them towards this important sections, and few sections from the self-study module will be covered as part of this 5 days training. And the next session, day 2, will be conducted on 11th of June and we'll have 3 more modules over there. On 12th June, we'll have 2 more modules. And on 18th of June, we'll take advantage of 3 modules at a time. And we'll conclude this training on 25th of June with some report writing skills and few modules that we need to cover. Before we begin the actual part, it is important for me to make sure that you all understand the importance and how we can actually make the process easy and how you can take maximum out of these 5 sessions. So, my dear friends, I am Jayant, who will be the instructor for the next 5 sessions, and I hold 10 plus years of experience in the field of information security, which includes teaching, training, research, development, freelancing, and so on. I'm currently associated with Cartel Software as a security analyst and a EC Council instructor. As an EC Council instructor, I'm authorized to train candidates on EC Council certification courses. So Hacker School is a training division of Cartel Software where I constantly take the opportunity of training candidates from the team. With this so-called self-promotion, let's not waste time over here. So, as said before, CPENT is a pen testing program. So what we have learned in CEH is going to give you a brief overview of identifying vulnerabilities and exploiting them with the help of tools. We'll take the same exact skill set and we'll make use of the same exact tools, but in a different fashion. The very important skill or the very important habit that every penetration tester must have is the mindset. The way how we think about things must change. So it is not always possible for us to exploit missions until and unless there is some kind of loophole or serious vulnerability that is assisted with some kind of misconfiguration, which can be exploited with the help of a payload or else an exploit code and so on. Just to make sure that each and every penetration tester builds this mindset, CPENT exam is going to have a different strategy. Or you will be put into a real life pen testing environment where little piece of information is provided on what is the network that you are testing or what kind of vulnerabilities may exist. So throughout this 5 days of training, I want to take you out of the box from this actual contents because the secret of success behind the certification completely lies on the independent research that you do apart from the course contents. Of course, course contents are equally important and access to the material will help you in going through all different practicals in an easy environment with all the missions up and material aside. So just to show you, I hope you all have the actual access to the EC Council Aspen material. All the theory material can be accessed from this particular Aspen panel. And most important thing from this particular panel is the practice range. I hope you also have practice range as part of your package, and practice range is nothing but the live environment, a corporate environment simulation that is done by EC Council. So once you are through with each and every practical that is part of this or content that is part of this particular course, you can face the practice range and start conducting your own pen test and evaluate your skills. My dear friends, this is going to be easy only if we have the mindset properly built. My efforts for the next 5 days will be on making you think a little bit different than usual. So the theory material can be accessed right from this particular section. And when you click on this, it opens up the EC Council's actual portal, which is called as Bookshelf, from where you can access all the theory material. So I highly recommend each and every attendee to go through this particular content at your free time. Of course, I will be picking up the key components of each and every module and cover them as part of this 5 days training. So please make sure that the contents that I'm going to cover as part of this particular session will be slightly different from the practicals that you see on EC Council Lab. What I feel is the things that are present on the EC Council iLab platform or Learn on Demand platform can be easily achieved by simply looking at the material that is present. For each and every lab, I think you already went through the contents. So if you launch the lab, you will be able to see the material, the step-by-step guide on how to perform that particular practical. So I think you can easily proceed and do those practicals by simply looking at the steps that are present in the material. That is the reason why, apart from these practicals that are part of this material and iLabs, I'm gonna take you through few other examples which are not taught in the course, but must be achieved by the student for going through the actual exam. Just to make the process very simple, even for the actual lab, or if you are planning to take the exam, or if you are going to work for an organization as a penetration tester, the topics which I'm going to cover will be performed on a separate virtual missions. So I designed few missions to demonstrate those practicals, and I will be sharing all those missions with you so that you can set up your own lab and practice them over there. So even if you don't have access to the actual lab right now, you no need to worry, because as I mentioned, we will be taking you through few practicals that are part of the lab and few practicals that you can do on your individual VMs. I hope you all are able to see my Parrot screen right now. EC Council recommends using Parrot Security OS, but if you are already familiar with few other distributions like Kali Linux or any other hacking distributions, you can feel free to use it. So CPENT will not come with any kind of restriction on the tools or the platform that you are going to choose. Take advantage of picking up something that you are comfortable with and make sure that most of the tools that you have learned from CEH are properly working on those operating systems. So to mention three most common tools that we frequently use throughout this course duration: 1. Nmap, 2. Wireshark, 3. Metasploit framework. Of course, you already have the fundamentals on how to use all these tools. We'll try to apply them on the missions that I'm going to share with all of you. Don't worry about the missions right now. When the time comes, we'll make sure that you have access to the links to download those missions and set up. For today's session, I just want to make sure that you are going to revise certain topics that you have learned from the previous module, and which makes our process of learning some advanced techniques in this course very simple. So I think the link to the actual resource will be shared with you over LMS platform, and I'm going to drop the link in the chat for all of you. And I request each and every one of you to please bookmark that link. And when you head towards that link, you will be able to see a download button, which will download a OVA file, which you can easily load onto VirtualBox. Before we proceed with this, may I know what is the virtualization software that you are comfortable with? Is it VMware or VirtualBox? Please drop your opinions in the chat. Very good. Very good. All right. It seems that most of you are there with VMware. In fact, this particular OVA file, I don't think it will properly work on VMware. Anyhow, you can give it a try. So we didn't tested this on VMware, but it is always better if you can manage to go onto a free platform, which is VirtualBox. So today, at the end of the session, you can take advantage of loading it onto VMware and see if you are able to start the VM. If not, you can go and download the free version of VirtualBox from the official website, which is virtualbox.org. Let me drop the link in the chat for your reference. Head towards the download section and download VirtualBox for your concerned platform. It can be Windows, Mac, or Linux. And it is very simple to install. And once you are done with that process, take advantage of double clicking on the OVA file, which is named as HSBox. This is intentionally made vulnerable mission. There are certain exploits that you can use against this particular box, which are going to be kept secret for now. And I want you to experiment and take advantage of exploiting it. Anyhow, we'll talk about how you can approach this in the upcoming modules. But up until that particular time, I want you all to experiment and see if we can break into this with the skills that we already have. Now, moving back onto the content of this particular course, my dear friends, as said before, this particular course should be approached with a proper pattern. Jumping between different materials that are present in the resources or the iLabs or the ebook material is not going to help us achieve what we want to. My strategy for clearing this particular exam at the earlier days of this course, I think CPENT is 2 years old now, and I am the third one all over India to clear this examination after a lot of effort and time dedicated for preparation. Based on the experiences, I want to make it very simple for all of you to clear this examination. Anyhow, even if an exam is not a concern, the skills that you earn from this course are going to help you a lot in the penetration testing environment that you are going to face in an organization. Trust me for that. So to proceed with this course, I feel like starting with the ebook is the first step. Once you are done reading through the content that is part of ebook, you can move towards iLabs. Please note that most of the concepts that you see as part of ebook will be similar to the EC Council CEH content, because CEH is the base for all pen testing related certifications that EC Council provides. So you no need to worry a lot about each and every theory concept that is part of this ebook material. At the end of this particular module, we are going to conduct a small test, and even that test is going to be practical, not theoretical. So don't take it very serious about theory, but simply going through the material can give you an idea of what are the concepts that can help you. If you are thorough with the EC Council CEH content, you can completely avoid this and jump onto the iLabs as your very first step. iLabs can be accessed from the EC Council Learn on Demand platform, as I've showed you before, from where you can take each and every module and perform practicals that are part of that module by simply launching the lab, which I'll be showing in 1 or 2 demonstrations as part of our training courses, training duration. And all the iLab practicals are aligned in such a way that they only give you the usage of the tool or how to perform that specific practical. I'm very much concerned about making sure that you are not going to stick to this particular pattern of doing practicals one after the other. My intention is to make sure that you all have the habit of linking each and every concept together rather than focusing on practicals. It is not like first practical, second practical, or third practical. It is not going to work that way in the real world. So linking each and every concept and identifying which technique helps us at this particular point and proceeding with that technique is very important. So the HS box that I have shared with all of you will teach you that skill for sure. Anyhow, just to make sure that I'm going to give you the right process, I will be discussing the solution in the later module, in the later training sessions. But please make sure that you are going to cover the practicals that are part of iLabs. Once you are done with iLabs, if you have already subscribed for the practice range, that is the final point. Please note that practice range is not like an environment where all the machines are vulnerable. This is the actual story behind the CPENT exam and the course. This is going to simulate the real life environment. You will see some machines which are part of a domain, Active Directory environment. You will see few machines are Linux, few machines are web servers, few are database servers, few actually part of some IoT environment, OT environment, and few will have vulnerabilities because of some malicious or badly coded executables that are present on it. Few can be directly exploited with the help of ports that you have identified. Few cannot give you a reverse connection using Metasploit framework, and a lot more to it. Anyhow, I'll take you through all different techniques on how you can actually achieve on solving those missions, and what are the things that we need to do as part of pen test, right? By simply taking some example. As it is not possible for all of us to go and access practice range right now, we are going to create our own environment using VirtualBox. please make sure that you do this test and confirm whether the OVA files that I'm going to share with you are running perfect on VMware or not. Because I didn't tested this on VMware, so I'm not sure whether this properly functions on VMware or not. Even if it is not, you can take advantage of setting up a VirtualBox environment and load them over there. All right. So with that thing said, let's move on to the contents. So when we look at the contents, all 14 modules are something like this. And among all the 14 modules, few are core components for this particular course. And I hope you all are thorough with Nmap, Wireshark, and Metasploit. So we will take advantage of these three utilities a lot in the core modules that I've highlighted on the slide right now. I hope you all are able to see the slide on the screen. Module 5, Module 6, 7, 8, and 13 deals with different aspects that we come across the real-life pen test environment. And remaining modules that are not bolded or highlighted are kind of more theoretical. Anyhow, the agenda for this particular module as part of your master course is to give you the practical skill set. So I don't want to spoil that particular agenda by simply taking you through the boring theory content. I'll try my level best on taking you through some practicals throughout the course duration to make sure that you build the mindset that I was mentioned. By the end of this particular module, I want you all to come up with that particular mindset and feel so comfortable on handling a real life pen test. With this thing said, apart from this, there are some self-study modules as I mentioned before. So as part of this 5 days training, I want to take advantage of picking up the 4 modules that are highlighted as part of self-study module and replace the theory modules that are part of the previous slide with these practicals. Mastering Metasploit, because CPENT will not have any restrictions on using Metasploit, unlike any other certification course or any other training that you face in the real life pen testing. For example, offensive securities OSCP or any other certification from offensive security have limitations on using Metasploit framework. Anyhow, even in the real life scenario, when you are conducting a pen test for an organization, you may or may not be allowed to use Metasploit framework. So by keeping that particular point in mind, I want to make sure that you learn the skill even without using Metasploit framework. I'll cover a few practicals that will demonstrate on how we can take advantage of basic utilities that are part of our Parrot or Kali to perform this particular activity. These are the course contents, and these are the things that we will be covering as part of the module. A little bit about exam before we directly jump onto the contents of today's session. My dear friends, as mentioned before, the material, iLabs, and practice range are the 3 main components for the success in this course. Anyhow, even the exam that we are going to conduct at the end of this particular module will take advantage of concepts that are from the practice range and iLabs. So even if you are not able to access practice range or iLabs, don't worry. Please make sure that you are preparing your own running notes with the contents that I'm going to cover as part of the session. I will make sure that you can easily set up your lab and practice all the concepts on those missions instead of worrying about missions that are set up in the practice range. Of course, it is not possible for all of us to simulate the real life environment with our virtual missions on our actual device, but we'll try our best to make sure that we are able to do it. So the key concepts that we are going to learn from this 5 days training include Active Directory exploitation, binary exploitation, pivoting, double pivoting, and exploiting web servers to gain access to the internal network. With this thing said, exam, anyone who is going to plan on writing the exam, this is a 24 hours exam where you will be given access to the virtual environment and you can take advantage of whatever standard operating system that you are comfortable with. And there is no restriction on what are the tools that you must use to solve the challenges. So the important thing about the exam to note is CPENT is a combination of two different retired certifications from EC Council, which are ECSA and APT Advanced Pen Testing. So one single exam with two different certifications is the benefit for CPENT. If you are able to clear the CPENT exam with 70% mark, you can earn CPENT certification. If you are able to clear the same exact exam with 90%, you will earn EC Council's prestigious LPT Master certification as a bonus without any additional exam. I'm unlucky to earn LPT Master because I scored somewhere around 89 or 88%, which failed on going through the LPT. So I don't want the same thing to be faced by other attendees who are facing this exam. It is very simple. Let me lead you to the process so that you can earn the prestigious LPT Master too. With all these things said, I hope you all got the clear picture of what this course is all about and what we will be doing throughout this 5 days training program. My dear friends, before we dive onto the contents of this session, I just want to confirm, are you all able to understand? Is it clear? Am I going fast? Am I going slow? Am I going moderate? Please drop your opinions in the chat so that I can proceed.
Sir, I just have one doubt.
Yeah.
So we have sessions on 11th, 12th, 18th,
Yes.
and 25th, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So today, which is 4th, again 11th, 12th, 18th, and 25th will be our last session.
Sir, also we need login credentials for the Dropbox link.
You don't need login credentials. When you click on that link, it actually pops up, but you can close that pop-up window, and on the background you will be able to see the actual download option. For the first time when you open this, it will actually ask you to register. Pardon?
Also the hacker school login. Like after we
Okay. You're talking about that VM.
Yes, sir.
Start the VM, right? That is where the key component is. We are not going to share the credentials. Even I don't know what is the login detail. We are going to hack that particular box and achieve full control on that box. Got it?
Okay, sir.
All right. So this is kind of challenge, but challenges in all my sessions are not that serious. So don't take it very serious. I will tell you the techniques and you are going to solve it. Don't worry. Right? So please make sure that you are able to download the VM and load that onto VMware or VirtualBox. Someone confirmed that it is working on VMware too. Thank you so much, Mr. Muthu. So others too, make sure that you are able to download and start the VM. And the moment you start the VM, you will be able to see the IP address on the main login banner. So this is just to reduce your burden on doing any kind of network scan on identifying this device. So our main focus will be on exploiting it. And as you already know all the tools, what is the first step to do? What is the next step to do? So let me tell you what is the goal for this particular mission. Please note down this into your running notes. Goal for this particular challenge is to exploit the vulnerabilities that are existing on this mission. Please note that I'm confirming that this mission is vulnerable. There are a number of ways in which you can exploit this mission. So the goal is to grab two different user flags that are placed under the user home directories and one root flag that is placed under root user's home directory. That is very obvious. So once you grab these three flags, we can conclude saying that you are done solving this particular mission. We'll take this as a base, and I will also explain how to prepare a report at the end of this particular training on the last day. So up until that particular point, you have time on solving this. Anyhow, maybe in the internal pen testing module next week, I will be giving you the solution. I will show you a few ways on how you can exploit it. But you have time until the end of this particular training module, looking for ways to exploit this and find out all different ways that are possible to exploit it. So even though you are not familiar on doing any kind of CTF related competitions, or you're not familiar or never did any kind of box like this, don't worry, feel like this is the very first challenge and make sure that you are starting with this to apply the skills that you have. As you already have the skills related to Metasploit, there are modules that you can use to exploit vulnerabilities existing on this box. Even if you're not familiar with Metasploit, you can hack this box without using Metasploit too. Try to figure out ways, and we'll come back to this later. All right, then. Thank you so much for all your feedback, and I hope everything is good and we can proceed. Very good. So my dear friends, as part of this particular course, as I mentioned, there are few core techniques that are very important for us to understand and learn. Apart from all those things, the basic skills that you learn from CEH, like privilege escalation, which is one of the post-exploitation activities that we must perform on a regular basis on both Linux and Windows, are to be brushed up a lot. Anyhow, few techniques that are not part of CEH and also not part of eCouncil-CPENT will be shared with you so that you can take advantage of applying them in the real world too. As I mentioned, this course is intentionally made difficult only for the reason, like exam is completely different from the contents that you do on iLabs. It is same like how our childhood days used to be. Our maths teacher used to solve a simple problem in the class, and they used to give us a difficult problem as homework. Am I right? So this is also the same kind. So all the things that we learn in the iLab will help you, but not directly. So just to build that mindset, I want to give a good start with that VM, right? Or HS box that I've shared with you. So please note down this point on your running notes. Not all missions in the exam or in the practice range are exploitable. Think about defenses all the time. In the real life environment, do you feel like administrators are that dumb they leave the mission with some easy exploitation or easy vulnerability? No, not at all. And you can never ever find an outdated operating system or unpatched operating system while you are performing a real life pen test. This is where the actual understanding or research begins. As part of any cybersecurity training, this particular mindset is to be the main goal. So let's begin with this module on a good note. My dear friends, please make sure that you grab a running notes and note down all different techniques that I am discussing in the class. As mentioned, few things that I discuss in the class may not be there in the material. Anyhow, I think you will be receiving the recorded lecture. You can look at this lecture and grab those concepts later too. But as a penetration tester, it is very important to make it a habit of note making. So I will tell you, or join all these things at the end of the day before you go towards your exam. So my dear friends, we'll focus on this skill by simply taking this HS box that I have shared with you. And every general technique that I'm explaining, we'll see whether we can apply that on this box, right, and solve them or not. And throughout this training, I will be giving you a bunch of random examples, and even I don't have any material for that. Whenever there is a topic that comes in my mind, I'll randomly go on to a live example, a website there, or else some kind of misconfiguration on the internet, right? So even that is not under my control. So it is always better you grab running notes and note down all those things along the go. With all these things said, I think we are ready to begin the actual part for today's session. Before we start, I just want to inform you once again. Today, we will be focusing on Module 1, which is Introduction to Pen Testing, Module 2, which is Pen Testing, Scoping and Engagement. These two modules are completely theory. So please bear with me for the first half of today's session. I'll try my best to make sure that you learn something new from this. Most of the things that I cover will give you the actual understanding of what is pen testing and what are the key things that you must understand before you start performing any kind of pen test operation. And the next two modules that we cover as part of today's session include OSINT, which is module 3, and module 4, social engineering pen test. Even though OSINT or social engineering pen test are not always part of real life pen test, the contents of this course are designed in such a way to help you with all round knowledge, right? Whether you are going to apply it or not. In fact, when you are performing pen test for an organization, not always will go and take advantage of spending time on doing some information gathering from external resources. But in few scenarios, especially when you are going with a black box pen test, these things are very important. So we have few practicals as part of OSINT and social engineering. Let's see how we can manage to conduct all those things the second half of today's session. That's the brief plan for today's session. So without wasting time, let's jump onto the actual part for today's session. Before we begin, I just want to bring that energy back. My dear friends, are you all ready? Are you all ready with the challenge? If yes, please drop C in the chat. Great, great. All right. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So my dear friends, please feel comfortable on pausing me at any point if you feel difficult in understanding some technique or concept. So I'll try my level best to keep it very simple and relate it with an example that can make it easy for you to remember. Please don't by heart, right? So don't think like this is practical 1, practical 2, practical 3. No, 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 no. No practical 1, practical 2, practical 3. We always think about concept. We take advantage of linking the first thing with the second thing. So 2 points that you must keep in mind for all the 5 sessions is point number 1, always take advantage of applying this in a different angle. So never ever stick to one standard example that I discuss in the class. Try to explore and see in what way this can be utilized on exploiting some other resource or some other platform or something else. Point number 2, you must always take advantage of enjoying the session. Please don't think about exam or else something that is going to happen later, right? Be in present, make sure that you are enjoying the content, make sure that you are able to keep your mind free. That is the only way in which we can build this mindset. I hope you all are there with me to achieve this goal of thinking differently as part of pen test. Do remember, this is the key to the success. If we are ready with the methodology, no matter whether it is a network pen test, cloud-based pen test, Wi-Fi pen test, mobile pen test, or it can be any kind of pen test, right? You will be able to achieve it. The core methodology is what this 5 days of training is all about. So without wasting time, module 1, introduction to pen testing. My dear friends, we all know what is pen test. I hope you heard about pen test a lot of times. So let's dig a little bit detailed about pen test and the actual methodology that we need to learn, right? To make sure that we are successful in any of the pen testing engagements that we are conducting for an organization. Out of all different things that we have learned so far, keep the tools aside and start thinking about how we can use those tools at the right point. Even today, when I sit in a panel conducting interviews to recruit candidates, I feel so bad that candidates are really good at using tool, but they fail on understanding how to apply it whenever I give a situation. So do remember, if you have learned how to exploit Windows 10 mission, that simple process or that practical is not going to work on all Windows 10 missions that you see, because each and every mission on the network is different. That is why we are conducting pen test. Main reason behind conducting any kind of pen test or companies opting for pen test on more frequent basis is to re-evaluate their security measures. It is not like we set up some kind of infrastructure and it can take care of all different things automatically. No, tool is tool. The actual skill that a employee or else a penetration tester must apply is to see up to what extent the tool can go and what are the areas the tool cannot cover, and test those things personally using different techniques. So pen test is all about evaluating security, as I mentioned before. In what way you are going to evaluate? When we talk about an organization, there will be n number of resources. So most of the organizations nowadays have most of their infrastructure on cloud. In fact, if you are part of a pen test operation, you must have a clear idea on which area you are going to perform the pen test for. Because if the infrastructure is on cloud, you need to take a different approach than simply going with Nmap and scanning ports or identifying ports, because the cloud environment is designed to make sure that common attacks are not possible on it. So to perform the cloud-based pen test, the organization must specify the requirement in detail, giving access to the penetration tester performing the test on it. If you are performing the test on the network, then you can start with the known techniques like performing a network scan, using Nmap to identify the ports, performing version detection to identify what are the versions of the software that are outdated, look for exploits, run Metasploit, take advantage of remote control exploits and gain access to that mission, exploit it further to pivot to other devices on the network, and so on. So in these two examples, either it can be cloud or the network pen test, the process remains same. Of course, the technique or the tool that we use will be different, but the process remains same. One of the most common questions that comes in mind when we talk about pen test is defense. So it is quite common that organizations will have their own monitoring mechanisms set up. It can be something like a IBM QRadar setup, which constantly logs and builds relations between each and every piece of information that is logged on the system. Or there can be a firewall as a basic defense, IDS or IPS, which actually detects and prevents most common types of attacks. With all these defenses in place, your job is going to be a little bit tricky. So please note that exploiting these networks is not that simple until and unless we spend a lot of time at the pre-processing or pre-exploitation phases. So this particular step will be different for each and every type of pen test that you are going to face. Let us put them into two broad categories. As mentioned, the modules include external pen test, internal pen test, and perimeter pen test. But in general, the actual types are only two, external and internal. So what is difference between external pen test and internal pen test? English is very simple. The words are clearly going to tell you what is the difference. Internal pen test is all about you putting yourself in the actual network, having access to most of the resources, less efforts on bypassing the major defenses to exploit and test the vulnerabilities. External pen test is bit difficult when compared with internal pen test because you must find for ways that can penetrate through the defenses and gain access to the internal resource. I hope you are there with the quite difference between external pen test and internal pen test. Also make sure that pen test is performed to make sure that we have all the resources properly tested for any exploitation possibilities. This is completely different from vulnerability assessment. Vulnerability assessment becomes part of pen test, and it is the very first step before you start with the actual exploitation. As you have seen in the previous module, taking advantage of an automated scanner like Nessus or any other vulnerability scanner, for example, the basic Nmap script scans, for identifying vulnerabilities, we only get a picture of what are the outdated services that are existing. But there is no confirmation saying that these are vulnerable and exploitable. Let me give you a simple example to stick to this particular point on understanding pen testing. If you identify that the target is actually using Windows 7 machine, can you confirm that the machine is exploitable 100%? If yes, please drop 1 in the chat. If no, please drop 2 in the chat. Let me repeat the question. If you identify that the target machine is Windows 7, can you confirm that it is 100% guaranteed that we can exploit it? If you feel like we can exploit it for sure 100%, please drop 1 in the chat. If you feel like 50-50 don't know, then 2 in the chat. Very good. Very good. Think out of the box. It can be 3 also, right? All right, 1 or 2. I can see that majority of the attendees are saying 2. And there are few attendees that they say 1, right? In fact, there is no right answer for this particular question. Let me tell you why. So whether it is exploitable or not completely depends on n number of things. Let us take 2 different scenarios. You somehow identified that it is Windows 7. Yes, for sure, Windows 7 is a bit older version of operating system, and there is a possibility, high chance, that the services which are by default configured on Windows 7 are exploitable. But when you can exploit it? Scenario number 1. If this mission is inside the network, for example, inside the Reva University campus, and you are somewhere at your home place. Now tell me, is it 100% guaranteed that you can exploit it? If yes, please drop 1 in the chat. If no, drop 2 in the chat. I can see that opinion started changing with the change in the scenario. Yes or no? Right. So in this scenario, the Windows 7 machine is part of the organization network. Most of the times, this machine is not exposed to the external internet. There are certain servers in the network which are exposed to the internet maybe, and only those machines are reachable for you over internet. The device that is inside the network is behind a lot of defenses. So it can have its own firewall or network firewall or the premises based additional firewalls. So firewall is just to make sure that you are not trapped by some common attacks. but don't feel like it is 100% secure all the time. Now let us change the scenario a little bit. The same exact Windows 7 machine, which is inside the organization network, but there are certain services that are exposed to the internet. Now tell me, is it possible for us to exploit it? If yes, drop 1 in the chat. If no, 2 in the chat. Hello, am I audible? Are you all able to understand? Yes. Great. So in this scenario, as the service is exposed to the internet, there is a high chance of success. Now, talking about other scenarios, this same exact Windows 7 machine, which you feel like an outdated one, may have patches properly applied. Of course, Windows 7 is an operating system for which Microsoft stopped all the support. It means there are no additional security patches that Microsoft is going to release for Windows 7. This machine is going to be safe from all different common threats until there is a new vulnerability that is identified by someone out there on the internet or a researcher out there on the internet. This is the same exact thing that happened even in case of Log4j. Log4j is utilized by a lot of different platforms so far. All of a sudden, someone identified a critical vulnerability in it, and all the servers which are up to date, latest, which we felt like it is secure, are exploitable today, right? So this is always a question mark. Now coming to the actual point on why pen test, because of this reason. Are you understanding, my dear friends? So only pen test can confirm whether your machine is really vulnerable or not, because we are going to exploit that vulnerability with a proper permission from the owner and confirm that yes, there is a possibility and people can exploit it. That is the reason why performing pen test on frequent basis is a habit for all the organizations, because a vulnerability that was identified today, a patch that was applied today, is not going to guarantee you that the machine is not exploitable tomorrow. I mean, if you are not conducting pen test on frequent basis, half yearly basis or quarterly basis, or few organizations take it as a constant job, they constantly observe all the defenses, try to take advantage of recruiting a red team, right? Where the red team's job is always focusing on hitting this network with a lot of different exploits or attacks and observe, is it falling for the trick or not? So for conducting this, there is a process. Let's look at that process as part of this module. So I already discussed a bunch of different things that we want to talk about importance of pen test. So pen test is going to improve the actual understanding about the security posture. We don't know whether the actual network defenses are properly working or not. At this point, I must also talk about the investment that we are doing as part of purchasing some infrastructure. No matter how much defense that you put in place, there is always a possibility that a criminal will look for in gaining access. One of the most common ways in which organization can be attacked is social engineering. And the other one that we are frequently observing nowadays since past few years is DOS, denial of service. I hope you all heard about these two words before. So if your organization is there with 100% security, hello, 100% is again a myth, right? This is according to theory. But let us imagine that your organization is there with an updated security infrastructure. You invested in bringing up some kind of artificial intelligence machine learning into your defenses, right? One of my areas of research where you trained all your devices to think in a smart fashion. You trained all your devices to think about defenses, right? And guard against all the common attacks. But one single employee who clicked on a link, downloaded a malicious software, right, can give access to this network, can allow attacker to enter the network. Or one single misconfiguration that was left on the web server, which is one targeting point for all different exploitation, can give attacker the actual access to the network. For example, let us take the same LMS platform from where we are accessing all the resources. What if you utilized that particular platform on a device, or else you used that particular accessing that particular platform on a browser from a random public resource, a public device? After your job, you actually left that mission without actually logging off or killing that session. If the application is not properly configured, it means it remembers all the session details. There can be a possibility of session hijacking, which allows attacker to gain access to the session. Of course, there are difficult, typical words that are going to describe these attacks, but in my terminology, there is a possibility for them to grab the cookies or some kind of session detail that is stored in your browser and access that resource directly. What if this LMS platform is part of the organization itself? What if this particular server, which is inside the organization, is connected with some other missions? Let us take like different departments have different networks, but all these networks are actually connected to this LMS platform, and this server is exposed to the internet. Attacker gained access to this particular session, and using this session and bunch of other vulnerabilities that are present on the server, he can eventually progress his steps towards a local mission in the network. So these two common types of attacks are causing a lot of trouble for the organizations nowadays. That is the reason why making people know what are the things that they are allowed to do, what are the things that are not allowed to do in the network is very important. So please note down this point in your notes. No matter how much you invest in bringing up all latest defenses, without proper knowledge, everything is going to be a target for attacker. So talking about pen test, how we conduct pen test. So as mentioned before, there will be organizations where they recruit a special team, and it is all about in-house pen test. So few organizations take it a habit of conducting it on frequent basis, quarterly or half yearly or yearly. Few organizations will have red team. Red team, nowadays, most of the organizations are looking forward to set up their own red team so that they can constantly check for any kind of weaknesses that can be exploited. So in-house pen test is all about their own team who are working on identifying vulnerabilities and pen test. So please let us keep this very simple. When I say pen test, it is part of it is going to include both vulnerability identification and exploitation. Okay, so let us keep these simple words in mind so we can relate them later when we move towards other topics. Next is outsourced pen test. So if you are hiring someone from outside to conduct a pen test, so it is generally said that our mistakes cannot be identified by us at any time. Always you feel like it is perfect. Yes, that is human tendency, right? But if you show this to someone, they will for sure identify some kind of mistake in it. This is quite common. No matter how perfect you are, people will always look for some kind of weakness there, some kind of way to exploit you. Hello? Yes or no? Are you all there?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. So outsourcing a pen test operation can really help you a lot in understanding and identifying unknown vulnerabilities. So you configured everything correct, but there is a simple misconfiguration that allowed a root user to log into your mission directly. I hope you all know how to use SSH. So when we try to log into SSH, we use some kind of ID and password. The basic configuration of SSH is in such a way that root users are not allowed to take a remote connection. So if you want to log in as a root user, you need to have physical access to that machine. But this is quite common change that any administrator will do. If there is anyone who is part of the network administration team, I think you already have that idea. We make some changes to allow root users to log in to SSH remotely, and we enable this RDP service so that administrator can take remote desktop and do any kind of changes. And we'll set up FTP service to make sure that we are able to update our servers through this FTP service, right? So these kind of misconfigurations are overlooked most of the times, which can be caught from outsourced pen test operations that we conduct. Next, as I said, most of the cloud environment will be tested by your cloud service provider. So we have pen testing as a service, and crowdsourced is becoming very popular from the past few years. I think you all heard about bug bounty, right? Bug bounty programs are the best example of crowdsource. This is very simple logic. Say, instead of me taking advantage of setting up a team, paying them a high cost for identifying vulnerabilities, right? Even though I have an expert team who are experienced and have around 20, 30, 40, 50 years of experience, there is a chance that they may not identify something very critical at times, right? I mean, that is the reason why when we are picking up a pen test team, we'll have people who are experienced, people who are freshers, people who are from other backgrounds, because each and everyone's perspective will be different. So in case of crowdsourced, we are actually putting it as a challenge for public, right? Instead of me paying for all different employees in the organization, I can go with one short thing. Like if anyone identifies a serious vulnerability, I can pay them a bounty of so and so amount. One shot, all less referred vulnerabilities, high amount of knowledge and skilled experienced candidates are going to test your network or test your infrastructure. Kind of outsourced is going to rule in the upcoming days for sure. But keeping this outsourced as an additional task, conducting a regular pen test, having your own team is very, very, very important. So we already know what is pen test. And as I mentioned before, vulnerability analysis or vulnerability assessment is actually part of pen test. So to divide them further, and if we want to make it more complex, you can say that vulnerability assessment is going to have three different parts again: vulnerability research, vulnerability assessment, vulnerability scanning, right? We call these three steps as vulnerability management, right? Anyhow, let's keep it very simple as you all are already familiar with all the CEH content. So vulnerability assessment and pen testing, right, are regular habits, but most of the organizations will take advantage of conducting these pen test or vulnerability assessment based on standards. Because whatever thing that we are going to begin, we always look for the initial point. For example, if we want to join a course, right, we always think about what is the starting point, what are the prerequisites, what are the things that I need to learn well before joining this course, right? So the same thing happens even when you are conducting a test. When I say pen testing for an organization, it is not like one or two missions that you are going to test. There will be thousands of missions, tons of different configurations, different networks, right? So even this EC Council CPENT practice range is the same, right? You don't know which mission is part of which network. You don't know which network can actually allow other network to communicate. So a lot of defenses in place will allow only specific networks to communicate. For example, if you take computer science department must have access to the computer science lab, maybe a remote access or something else. And it is not always important for the mechanical department to have access to the same exact kind of labs. So allowing someone from the mechanical department to have access, it's okay, fine. But if you are not putting the right defenses in place, attacker may look for this kind of connection between different networks, try to take advantage of exploiting people in the mechanical department to reach your actual lab or reach computer science department labs. Hello, are you understanding? So taking advantage of starting at some point is very common. For this reason, we have a lot of standards designed and companies follow those standards. It can be a WASP standard, SANS standard, their own pen testing standard, right? So standards will always tell where to start, what to test. But there is a small loophole in this. Can anyone tell me what is that we will be missing if we test or conduct pen test based on standards?
So you will not be exposed to the out of box.
Very good, very good. That is one reason. Any other?
We might miss out any vulnerability that is specific to that any specific organization if we go with the standard checklist like NIST or any other framework.
Yes, you are correct. Great.
People are
Yes.
generally non-compliant. So any processes or procedures where non-compliance is there, we won't be able to catch it.
Yes, you are correct. Very good. So as you all mentioned, it is very clear we are following 1, 2, 3, 4 steps. That's it. Anything that is out of scope for these steps, we are not going to touch that. And who knows, that one single thing that you are not touching up is going to be a serious issue. Let us take one single example to understand the difference between a security audit and pen test or red team operations that we do. So you will frequently hear these three words a lot. So security audits mainly focus on standards and procedures, right? So audits are quite common to maintain standards. Say, for example, if your organization is of ISO standard, so on yearly basis, their team will come or else your team is going to test this to maintain that standard. And again, university, let us take REVA, right? To maintain the standards. And if you want to say that REVA is a university, right, you need to follow some university standards. For sure, you need to take care of conducting the test to confirm whether you are following that standards. Anything extra that university is doing, right, it is all your interest. So it will not be part of the standard test. But pen test or red team are there with no limits. Of course, in case of pen test also, if you are following pen test standard, again, it falls under the same category. You may miss out on few things. Red team is something that is unlimited, right? So there is no boundary. You can do whatever you want. You want to test a simple firewall, you do it. You want to test one attendance management system or else that punching machine that is there, yes, you go and do it. Because even those things can turn out to be an entry point for us to exploit, because nowadays everything is becoming smart. Our lives are very simple here without all this smartness. But nowadays we are giving smartness to the device and in turn bringing all those risks towards our side. More functionality that you add, more welcoming it is for attacks, right? So taking advantage of a security audit is good, but going beyond that by conducting a pen test or red team operation is the key. Again, as mentioned before, the three categories as I've given with an example from the previous slide: goal-oriented, compliance-oriented, and red team-based. That's okay, fine. How you are going to allow someone who is going to test your organization to do the test for? For example, if I already say that, my dear friend, I identified that this is a Windows 7 machine and I found that there is a serious vulnerability for Windows 7. For example, the eternal blue one, right? A very popular one. It was identified somewhere back in 2017, but even today you can find tons of machines out there on the internet which are vulnerable for it, right? So even today I identify that as a key entry point while conducting pen tests. So is it like regular pen test that we are conducting missing out on the test? No, but still there is a possibility, right? So if you tell this particular piece of information to the pen tester, then obviously he will be focusing on that. But if you are not informing them regarding this, your pen test output will be really good. Why? If you tell them that is Windows 7, right? They will confirm that and they will proceed with other tests that they want to do on Windows 7. But if you are not going to specify that, they are going to completely perform something called as a black box pen test. They are going to try identify what is the operating system. For example, you tried identifying it with the help of Nmap, right? And Nmap failed on giving you the exact version and patch level. But as the pen tester is coming from a different background, a different experience, he may identify the exact version of Windows 7, exact patch level, why this particular risk is possible, what are the other risks that are possible, right? So is this your confirmation, I mean Windows 7, or else is it a misleading information that your tool provided? So we are there with some kind of conclusion, but it may not be correct all the time. So black box pen test is all about letting the party do the actual test without giving any complete information related to our organization. So most of the times we'll give a little piece of information for sure, just to make sure that they are not breaking the limits. So in case you will give the web link or the URL, or you may tell this is the network you must test. You will give a scope, I mean range of IPs to test, or else you will simply give the IP address of the organization, or else domain of that organization. So they are going to do all the test. So that is where blind and double blind. So blind said to have one or two pieces of information, critical pieces are shared. And in case of double blind, most of the information that we provide are not going to directly relate with some resource that is present. Or I can say that it is a little bit more difficult than the blind test that we are doing. White box, as the name suggests, you can actually go and take all the pieces of information from the organization and do the test. But as part of white box, there can be announced and unannounced. Why? Even if you agree or not, major portion of the attacks that are happening on the organization nowadays are originated from inside the network, right? So either clicking on the link or downloading some software, or else allowing attacker inside the network by the employee is becoming the source. Knowingly or unknowingly, if employee is allowing attacker to enter the network, do remember, once they are inside the network, their process becomes very simple, navigating between other devices. Because the defenses that we set for the internal network are less when compared with external network. Even when we talk about our general example, say if you are leaving for a vacation for 10 days or more than that, right? So how many locks that you will put up for all different doors that you have at home? So is that the main entrance only? Or else are you going to lock each and every room? How many of you lock each and every room? So separate lock for the kitchen, separate lock for bedrooms, separate lock for washrooms. Hello? Can be a silly question, but very relatable with the real life scenario. Very good. Yes, of course. We are not going to take it very serious on applying locks for each and every section, right? I can see that no one is actually doing that. Am I right? So this is the same habit that we have even when we are configuring devices inside the network. For attackers, the initial foothold is a bit tricky. Once they are in, everything is simple. So just to take advantage of understanding what is the level of knowingness or else understanding that the employees have, as part of white box pen test, we'll go with announced and unannounced. In case of announced testing, we'll only inform the key officials. So it can be the network administrator, the security engineer for that company. One or two employees or else a handful of employees will be informed that there is a pen test conducted, the pen test going on in the organization. In case of unannounced, only the head of this organization will know that there is a pen test operation going on. Others don't know, right? So in fact, as part of pen test, don't think only about the technical resources. We also go with non-technical activities. So if the organization opt for social engineering pen test, right, we'll randomly go and check if we have access to the internal resources. I mean, in person, can I enter the critical areas of that organization? For example, the server room, it is not locked and any random person with proper ID proof can enter, right? So if there is no sufficient checks done for the entry point, I can easily fake an ID card and then enter. Hello? Can't I make a simple ID card out of all the samples that you have posted somewhere on the internet for Reva, or else somewhere I can go and if I stand in front of your campus gate, I will be able to know how your ID card looks like, and I can actually wear that ID card and enter your campus. Yes or no? Hello? So,
Yes, sir.
yes, yes. It becomes very simple for anyone to do the job. So if there is no restrictions applied, right? I can even enter your head of the department room. I can even go and access some kind of record that is present. I can change my marks. I can do whatever I want. Hello? But when we are performing a test, we are not thinking that way. That is where the problems come in. So white box pen test mainly focus on that area. Announcing people will make them alert, and obviously you will miss out because people will be very cautious. If you say that principal is roaming around, obviously students will be very cautious. If that is not informed, then the actual loopholes will be properly identified. In general, this is quite common in the actual network environment, where certain operations which are to be regularly monitored are overlooked at times, which can lead to the risk. For example, if I know that you are not running your SIM tool 24/7, right? Very good. I got some hint. It is not going to log any kind of malicious payloads that I'm going to send. If I can trick the resource or the server at the time where your IDS or IPS or your SIM framework is not running, I will get success. These are the things that we must think about while we are performing actual pen test, apart from the regular hacking habits, right? So taking advantage of exploiting a network involves n number of things. I hope you all are understanding that with the right examples that we are going to pick up. And please make sure that whatever technique that we are discussing about, try to apply that in the general example, so general scenarios that you face in the organization. If you are a network engineer, or else if you are a security engineer, how many of you are working in the domain of security? Do I know how many of you are working in the domain of security? If yes, please drop S in the chat. And if you are a network engineer, please drop N in the chat. They can directly relate with this. No one? No one from the team? No one from the attendees? As for being a network engineer or security engineer? Okay, very good. We have system admins. Happy to know that. Yep. Yes. Very good. I can see that there are some network engineers. And I think you are able to relate with the things that we are talking about now. So a few things that we set up for our convenience becomes an entry point, right? This can roll out only if we constantly check. And wrapping up this particular section with gray box pen testing. So few things are informed and few things are not informed. For example, I'm not going to tell them how many internal networks are there, but I'm going to tell them that there is a major section of this area which is to be tested with some vulnerabilities that may exist, and I will also give them the service names and so on. So in case of gray box, they have a handful of vulnerable services information, but not only to that, they are going to take advantage of looking for other devices, other information that is not provided as part of the agreement. So that's it for this. And before we proceed further on to the last slides for this particular module 1, let's break for 15 minutes or 10 minutes. Is it for 10 minutes or 15 minutes?
15 minutes, sir.
Okay, all right then. So let's break for 15 minutes and we'll see you all at 11:45, right?
Gents, I need you for 5 minutes.
Yeah, pardon?
I need your help for 5 minutes. Let me share my screen.
Oh, sure.
Is that fine?
Ah, fine.
Yeah, 1 sec. So my voice is audible, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Have shared my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is visible.
Yeah, you asked us to download this VM box, right?
Yes, you have that OVA file, right? Simply double click on that OVA file and
Okay.
that loads onto this virtual box automatically.
Okay, fine. I'll do that. Thanks, sir.
Okay, fine. So once it is loaded, start the VM and check it. So once it is loaded, you can double click that VM, which is listed here on this panel. If it is booting up fine, then everything is good. If it is not, please let me know so that we can rectify it.
Sure, I'll do that. Thank you.
All right.
Sir, it is
Okay,
hanging
then.
for me.
It is hanging.
Yeah.
Hanging in the sense you are not able to ping it, or else any other issue that you're facing.
I think so. It's freezing when I do it. Let me share my screen.
Okay, sure.
Please let me know if you can see
Sir,
it.
it is asking hacker school login, sir, for me.
Yes.
Is
It will
it
ask
fine?
for login. Yes, it is fine. So if you are able to
Okay.
see something like this, it is fine.
Okay, I'm sharing
You are
my
able
screen.
to see something like this, it is fine. Yes, open. You can double click that OVA file directly.
Shall I double click?
You already installed VirtualBox. Yes, okay. Click on OK. And that automatically loads onto VirtualBox. Done. Import.
I did that initially.
And it is freezing here.
No, after this, when I start it, it freezes.
Let's see.
Okay, when I start it gives an error.
Okay, let me see what is the error so that we can easily fix it. Failed the session for VirtualBox 1. Okay. Can you please open the settings for this mission? So select that VM and click on the gear icon on the top. Yes.
Yeah.
And there is some kind of invalid setting below. So you are seeing a message at the bottom. Yes. Go and select USB 1. Yes. Click on OK. Now you will be able to start. I think your mission is going to support only USB 3. To resolve this issue, you can install the extension pack. I actually missed telling this thing. So people who have installed VirtualBox for the first time on this website, I think you downloaded this VirtualBox package and installed it, right? Along with that, click on this extension pack and download the extension pack too. After downloading extension pack, double click on the extension pack. It will add that extension pack onto your VirtualBox. That allows us to take advantage of your host related resources. So any kind of issue that you see because of USB driver or any other thing, or else if you are not able to start the mission after loading it, then please go and install the extension pack. You will be able to fix it.
All right,
Here we
sir. I
can,
think so. It's working for me now.
Yeah. You do the installation of extension pack too, so that you'll not come across this kind of issue for any other VM that you are going to load.
Okay.
where we can get this extension. Again, also I'm not able to download itself, this virtual box.
May I know what
download
is,
it. I download it, but I'm not able to run that exe then after that.
yes. Are you on Mac or Windows?
Windows.
Okay. May I know what is the error that you are facing?
Again, I'll have to go back. It was just saying that it is not able to run it.
Okay. So if you can tell me what is the error,
Just 1
then
second. I have again downloaded this. I'll be just clicking 1 minute. Just.
Okay. Have you downloaded the Windows package?
Yes, Windows host 6.1.31 and
Okay.
platform package talks Windows host. So I downloaded.
Have you downloaded it from the official website or somewhere else?
Website only.
Okay.
Then yes, it has started the installation.
So can we break for 10 minutes?
Yes, for sure.
Great.
So you all try to install and set up this whenever you have time today. At the end of the session, somewhere after completing our today's part, I will help you with any kind of issues that you face with the setup. Fine.
Sure. Thank you.
All right then. Let's break for 15 minutes. We'll see you all after break. फिर मिलेंगे break के बाद.
Devinder, you there?
Yes, I'm there.
For that Dropbox, do we need to give a like first name, last name, or how do we send?
I didn't provide anything. I just closed that window which was asking that. So I straight downloaded, but again, it is giving me this error. I'm not able to download it, or rather set up this in the machine.
So in downloads, you have two options, like save to my Dropbox or just only downloads, right?
Right.
Okay. And pages box. And the VM you have selected for the Windows itself, right?
Right.
Okay. Let's try. And then see you.
Yeah. Sure.
All right. I hope all of you are here. So can we begin? If yes, please drop B in the chat. All right. Please do confirm this. Are you all able to see the presentation on the screen? Yes, great. All right, then let's proceed on to the next important section for the same exact module. So we got the clear difference between what is pen test, what is red teaming, what is security audit, and why it is important for us to conduct pen test. Now, the actual methods on how to conduct pen test vary based on what kind of pen test that you are doing and what are the requirements that your client have. It is not like we know Nmap, we can scan whatever mission that is present on the target device. No, this is where the difference lies between the things that we learned in CEH and CPENT. So keep defenses in mind all the time. So whenever you perform some kind of scan, we know that these scans create a log on the target device. If they have additional defenses in place, these logs can build a relation and will also let the administrator know where the risk is, what is happening on the network. Of course, as part of penetration test, we are not going to worry about any kind of logs or alerts that these devices are going to generate. So please make a note of this in your running notes. We no need to worry about any defenses in place, or we are not going to think on bypassing everything that is there on our way. So this is one of the most common questions that I always receive, and obviously this is one common question that everyone will have in mind. When we say hacking, we always feel like hacking into every mission that is present or every mission that we come across. But the actual truth is, it is not possible to hack into every mission that you see. Again, a star mark on the top indicates that yes, there may or may not be a possibility for us to compromise this, which will make it more clear with tons of practicals that we do from the next week onwards. But why is it not always possible? Point number one, because of the network structure or the ways on how we can communicate with that server, we may or may not get access or do some kind of exploitation with that server. For example, the same HS box that I have started on my network, will you all be able to ping that or perform Nmap scan on that particular mission, which is part of my own network? Obviously, no. Until and unless you are part of my network, you can't ping or perform the scan on the same exact mission. So in this case, no matter how powerful your tools are, how accurate your exploits are, there is no way. Point number two, if the device is publicly exposed and there are some patches that are already applied, then there is no way that you can exploit it. I'm not saying that it is guaranteed again. Why? Because most of the penetration testing operations or the beginner level attackers, they learn one or two techniques and they only test for that thing. It is not guaranteed that every pen tester will have their own habit. Same like every candidate who is attending the session will grab the concepts from different perspective. That is where their questions differ and their understanding differ. The same thing happens even when you attend some kind of lecture. Every lecture is going to be different. And obviously, everyone will have their own pattern or strategy on going with content. This is the exact same thing happens even when you are performing the actual pen test on devices that are publicly exposed. I think you all are familiar with one of the most popular vulnerable missions that we use for practice purpose, which is Metasploitable 2. Have you all heard about Metasploitable 2 and used Metasploitable 2? Yes or no? Yes. Very good. Metasploitable 2 have a very serious loophole. Of course, Metasploitable 2 is meant to have vulnerabilities for practice purpose. Let us pick one thing, that is FTP service. So VSFTPD 2.3.4 is the version of the FTP service that is running on Metasploitable 2. Let me go online and check if I can find any computer that is running on the internet with the same version of the software on showdown.io. Showdown.io is a search engine, same like Google, but Showdown will search for devices on the internet. I'm going to search with the keyword VSFTPD 2.3.4. Let's see if we can find devices that are running the same exact version of FTP service on the internet and live. Good. You can see there are so many servers that are running the same version of VSFTPD 2.3.4. Now the chances of exploiting this device. Please note that I'm not encouraging you to exploit these public devices, but the chances of success on exploiting this vulnerability on this device is again 50-50%. Based on 2 points that I've said you before, whether you are able to reach this device or not, right? How to confirm that? Let's go and ping this device. So I'm going onto my Parrot, running a simple ping against that public IP address to check if I can reach the device. No, I'm not able to ping. Is this one single test enough to confirm whether the device is live or not? Obviously, no. The chances are the target device is blocking ping or ICMP, because of which you will not be able to ping. But I can take advantage of a bunch of other services that are running on this. If you carefully observe, there is 10,000 port, which is running some kind of HTTP service. Of course, it is unauthorized. But let me see if I can access that particular port through my browser. So I'm going to copy and head towards the port 10,000. Very good. It is asking for authentication. I have no intention on breaking authentication or something else, but this confirms that the server is live. Are you understanding? So the common test that we do, like ping, failed in telling us whether the device is live or not. But this particular thing indicates that this server is live. Keeping this aside, server is not going to respond for ping, but how about TCP request that we send? Is it going to allow us to connect to the TCP? Please note that I'm not doing any additional Nmap scan to identify whether anonymous FTP is present or not. My intention is not to perform vulnerability scan or exploit it, but just to check if we can actually make a connection. Group. Most of the times, the service or the banners that you are seeing here may not be that accurate. The server versions may be updated, and later in time, the vulnerabilities are also patched. But with this simple connection, I'm sure that I don't have the credentials right now, but the banner that is displayed immediately after trying to make a connection confirms that it is running 2.3.4. So from a blind spot, we are able to identify an IP address. We are able to see that the version is correct. You don't need to do version detection scan. This is where the differences lie, right? So obviously, this is not a professional pen test that we are doing right now. So we are not there with any agreement with this organization to test this IP address. It is completely illegal. If we have permission, then we can proceed further on doing some Nmap script scan or doing some Nessus related vulnerability scan. right? Or use some other automated scan, aggressive scan to identify it. So let me go and take advantage of connecting with the default credentials like FTP, FTP. You can see login incorrect. With this, I can confirm that there is no anonymous FTP allowed. I'm not doing any scan, but I'm proceeding forward with the information that is present by simply making a normal queries. Now it is time for me to see if this particular version of the software is really vulnerable or not. We already know from the previous experiences that VSFTPD 2.3.4 is vulnerable. I can simply go on Google and ask Google VSFTPD 2.3.4 vulnerabilities. That will immediately bring me onto the standard resources from Offensive Security for Rapid 7, the actual documentation that includes all the exploit paths for the exploits that are present in Metasploit. Exploit DB, yet another standard exploit database from Offensive Security, also have a code. You can also go on CVE website, right? So cvedetails.com to see the risk and that is associated with this vulnerability. Or I can simply search for CVE. So cve.mitre.org. And if I do a little bit of research about VSFTPD 2.3.4, I can see there is a backdoor command execution available, and there is some other vulnerability associated with a specific function of FTP. All right. If you read the description of the very first one, you will come to know that this particular version, which was released between these two dates, have a backdoor rolled out with the package that you are downloading. That opens up 6200 port to give you a reverse connection. Okay, this is an idea that I can pick up from the previous experiences and see if I have this port, which is 6200 open on that target server or not. How to test it? Again, I'm not doing nmap scan. I'm going to cut down this to very simple activity of using netcat. I hope all of you used netcat before. So netcat is a Swiss Army knife that you can use it for a bunch of different activities. We will use this for port scanning. We'll use this for getting reverse connections, handling shells, and so on throughout this course duration. But for now, let me see if I can connect. Again, yet another confirmation. So if I can proceed with some kind of FTP commands. So user FTP, no response back. If I go with pass FTP, no response back. All right. Now let us check for 6200. I'm trying to connect to that port. If I'm able to connect to that port, I will be able to see connection success, but here I'm seeing connection refused. Okay, from the previous information, now we can build that this mission may not be vulnerable, or it is for sure not exploited before. Why? If this was exploited with some kind of exploit code, you must see this port open, because using this port only, it is going to give you the reverse connection. As I'm not seeing that this port is open, I can confirm that there is no one who actually exploited this before. The other side of the coin, the version of this software is patched. Who knows? You are seeing the same exact vulnerable version. The patch for this particular thing is already applied. If you go onto the documentation on CVE, you can see resources from where you can get patches and bunch of different links from where you can read more about it and apply the right countermeasures to guard against that attack. Of course, this is one simple example on how you can proceed with pen testing. If you observe in this example, I actually used less amount of tools, and tools actually helped me in knowing only few pieces of information. More of this example is assumptions. Hello, are you all understanding? Is it clear? So any kind of pen test that you do, automated tools cover only 45%, somewhere around 45% of your test. The remaining 55% is more manual. So I gave you this example because we already know we can simply try and get success if it is vulnerable with the help of Metasploit exploit, or simply go and download it from exploit DB and run this against the target and get success if it is vulnerable. But as I said before, in a pen testing environment, we need to think about defenses. The firewall that is present there may be blocking the requests that are coming from a random public IP address, or else even if the service is running, port is open, it is not allowing reverse connections, or else there are certain ports that are open, but still you are not allowed to connect to that particular port. For example, the 62001 that I connected to the target server using Netcat refused the connection. So we can't conclude saying that it is because the port is closed. Maybe there is a firewall rule that actually refuses this connection and you are seeing this message. If we proceed with additional enumeration techniques by simply looking at the traffic and the responses that we are receiving from the target, we can know even more about it, which we will be doing in the upcoming modules, upcoming sessions. But for now, my intention is to tell you on how much portion of our task is involved with tools and how much is not with the tools. I think with this simple example, you got an idea of how you need to consider tools. What is the importance that you must give for tools? So let me take you through yet another example before we move on to the actual process. Say RDP port is generally open, right, for most of the servers out there. So let me check for RDP service. If there is some RDP port open, and if it is a public server, and if it is part of a domain, then you all know what are the interesting things that we can do, right? So as you can see, there are servers that are running RDP, but let me go and use some other keyword, say for example, Windows server. Are there any Windows servers 2008 R2? Right? We generally come up with a mindset saying, no, we can't find this kind of vulnerable or outdated servers. But in reality, that is not true. Hello? Few organizations use Windows 7 also. Do you know that? In general, Windows 7 is not for not to run as a server, but there are places where they use Windows 7 as a server machine. Right? So whether they are doing it purposefully for their advantage or else unknowingly, that is a different story. But taking advantage of scanning this and identifying what are the ports that are open, let me go on this server, which is in China, right? Are you observing that 3389 is open there? So if I scroll down a little bit, I can also see the RDP connection related mission. And it is running Windows 7, Windows Server 2008 R2. This particular indication and the patch build number, which is 7601, which is somewhere around 7000, is a clear indication that it is some version of Windows 7, Windows Server 2008. So you've got the confirmation. Now, I don't try directly on exploiting it. I will enumerate it even more further to check if I can make a connection towards that server. Copy. Our desktop. Is our desktop installed on my machine? Yes, very good. Our desktop with IP address. Can I connect? No, you are not allowed. Maybe there is some kind of issue with the tool that you use. This is yet another point that you must note. Our desktop is going to work in a different fashion when compared with other remote desktop connectivity clients. For example, X-Free RDP. So X-Free RDP is kind of advanced version where there can be a possibility for me, right, to connect. Let's check. So I don't know the domain. I don't know the password. Obviously, it must reject. Yes, rejected. Anyhow, these are kind of tests that we can do. Most of the tasks that we performed by simply identifying IP address are manual. This is the point to be noted. So in all your pen test operations, it is a mixture of both automated and manual. What kind of pen test that you do? With a lot of examples that we covered before: network pen test, web application pen test, social engineering pen test, wireless network pen test, mobile device pen test, cloud pen test. All these pen tests will have a different procedure because, for example, if you are going with Wi-Fi pen test, we'll also check the signal strength and something. But this is not the thing that we'll do as part of web application pen test, right? So as part of network pen test, we'll look for remote login services like FTP, SSH. But in case of mobile pen test, we'll not do that because mobile phones will not run SSH server or else FTP server. So the test that we conduct will be slightly different. But these are the common areas that we'll test. Now coming to the actual process. Please note down these points in your running notes. So throughout the session, wherever I perform some kind of exploitation, I will take you through these steps.
So can you share me the
pardon.
previous slide, please?
Pardon?
The previous slide.
Previous slide. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Right. So the professional pen testing process involves some standards. I mean, not that standards that I was talking before. It is kind of a procedural environment where you can't directly go and perform the test. For example, as a organization, I must tell you which areas you are allowed to test. You can't directly jump into the premises and then start picking up whatever mission that you want to test and perform nmap scan and run some kind of ARP poisoning. Hello, that is very serious. That is beyond rules. That is not pen testing. That is exploitation or black hat hacking, right? We are part of pen test, not black hat hacking. This is one common question that people always ask me. How I can break into bank? Hello, do you feel that it is that simple to break into the bank application? Do you feel that administrators are that dumb they don't set up all the defenses? Do you feel like those missions are not properly updated? No. Yes, but there is a possibility for sure. That is what we test as part of pen test. For that, you need to have proper permissions. Without their permission, you are not allowed to go and randomly scan the missions. And even after having a lot of techniques in hand, for example, you learned how to perform DOS attack, right? You learned how to perform session hijacking. You know how to perform the network scans. You know how to take advantage of Wireshark to look at traffic. You know how to use Nmap to the full extent on identifying versions, aggressive scans, normal scans, all port scan, single port scan, customized scan, a lot of different things. But are you going to apply everything here? No. Let me give you one simple example. At times, you are not supposed to run ping. Why? Because the client have a specific requirement saying that few devices on this network are allergic to ping. I mean, if you run ping constantly, they can be DOSed, right? Something like ping of death. So you can say that this is vulnerable mission. Why you set up that in the network? Hello, that is my network. My requirement is different. I want that Windows XP mission only. Do you know that most of our banks are actually using a specific flavor of Windows XP for ATM missions? You know that most of your ATM missions are run on Windows XP. Of course, the base is Windows XP and it is a different set of different flavor of operating system, not the same exact Windows XP. But I think the pollution checks. How many of you have identified the pollution check missions? So if you have a vehicle and if you regularly get it pollution checked, what is the operating system that they use? Hello? What is the operating system that they use? Have you observed that it is Windows XP? Yes. Yes, it is Windows XP. Now let us think about the risk perspective. I mean, some random person using Windows XP, how come that will be dangerous for you and for this cyber world? Take a step back and think about it. This is a mission that is going to check a lot of different devices or else missions or else vehicles all over the globe. I mean, today he may set up his business here. Tomorrow he will shift to a different location and do the test there. And tomorrow, day after tomorrow, he may test vehicles in a different area or different country or different city, right? It changes. So all this information is part of that mission, or else maintained by some other server which can be communicated with this operating system or this mission. If you can exploit this particular device, right? Most of the missions that you are seeing which are connected to the internet are actually connected over a mobile internet connection, or else they may borrow some Wi-Fi connection from something else. For example, if this pollution check mission isn't at a petrol bunk, right? Petrol bunk Wi-Fi may be used, or petrol bunk internet connection may be used. So if you can find that IP address and exploit that device, is it not possible for us to take advantage of enumerating it further and exploit the server to which it is connecting if there are vulnerabilities? Again, no vulnerabilities, there is no point of thinking about all these aspects. And if you are able to compromise that, I can go and take advantage of grabbing all that information. Hello? Yes or no? And let me take you through this simple example. Of course, this is not part of a professional pen test, but just as an example. How many of you are from Bangalore? I think most of the attendees are from Bangalore, right? Is there anyone comfortable sharing your vehicle number? I think there is some kind of Challan website. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
So Karnataka Traffic Police. I'm not sure which website is that. I was experimenting with that few months ago, and I came across multiple websites. So e-challan, I'm not sure which one is the correct one. E-challan. This is TS Police, Hyderabad. I am from Hyderabad.
Just put traffic.
Is this the one? E-challan parivahan.gov.in.
No, Bangalore is there. Earlier, we used to find the complete address, vehicle details, everything through this.
Yes, yes. Now they
Yeah.
actually ask you for OTP to provide that information, right?
Yes, now they've little made it stringent to identify who's requesting it. But earlier, if I have to identify anyone, I just
It
go
is
and
difficult.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. But one thing that you, if you have performed this a month ago or so, even after adding that additional countermeasure, I was able to see the name of the owner, right? Except how much challan he must pay, that is a different story. But I'm at least able to know the name of the owner. If I'm able to know the name of the owner, you all know how to link that. Anyhow, we'll look at that process in the second half of today's session, right? I'm not able to identify that one. Let's take this one. Okay. I think it is not good to pick all your vehicle numbers at all, but let me try going with some vehicle search, right? So let's search for e-challan, TS, random search. Can I find some vehicles somewhere? Very good. A vehicle here, blurred number, but there is yet another vehicle, AP11. These TV channels are really good at providing a lot of information. AP11, AP, is it AP again? Right? Is bad at maintaining his vehicle, but let's check this. AP11, AP5905. And it is very simple, like adding the CAPTCHA. no challans. I want vehicle that have some kind of challans. If there are some challans, then it will be really good. So TS11 ED7650. Am I right? It is 7760 ED7650. ED7650 8L DX. No problem. If I'm able to find a vehicle that was there with that, it will be simple. Anyhow, there is no additional measure that is going to check whether he is the actual owner going to check for it or not. And once I enter that, I'm able to see all their challan details. The critical piece of information here is the vehicle number and owner name. The owner name that I can see on this page will help me on finding out their online profiles. Nowadays, our online profiles are very interesting. You know that? Your Instagram can tell more than what you know about you. So that can act as a base, right? So in case of regular pen test or when we are doing it for an organization, this can actually differ, right? There is some AP number someone dropped. Let's check. Is there anyone from Hyderabad attending this session? Seven MVJ.
Sir, it's only double C, sir, not three C's.
Okay, it is only C. VKJ8. Let's check.
Sir, please check in Andhra e-challan website.
Andhra Challan website. Okay. AP e-challan. Okay, I have AP e-challan. And even here, there is only vehicle number and a CAPTCHA. That's it. No additional information required. Right? And I think I have the Bangalore one too. Let me copy this link. Bangalore one, I found it quite interesting because it is little bit secure when compared with the previous one. Is this the one? Maybe. Maybe if we can check for the right point where we can provide the vehicle number and all, we can go and get that information. Why I wanted to take the Karnataka police, because there is a specific security measure added, but still there is a chance that we can grab some name or some vehicle detail, right? Which is more than enough for our test. Why I was picking up all these examples? Do remember, we are following a specific process so far. We are not randomly going and identifying exploits to it. At first, we figured out the website which we must use to find out this information. We figured out some numbers, right, or vehicle numbers, so that we can use those vehicle numbers for identification and so on. So for a random attack that you are doing, you need to follow a process. For a professional pen test, obviously, there must be a standard process. That is where these 3 steps come in. Scope. Right now, what we did is all random based. So going on Google, searching for numbers, or else attacking someone, or else generating some numbers. So obviously, all our vehicle numbers follow a specific pattern, right? Can't we generate a number with the technology that we have nowadays? We can easily generate a number. We can use tools that are present in Kali or Parrot also to generate numbers. I think you all heard about Crunch, which is going to help us in building word lists. So you can take advantage of those smart tools for building the words and then generate running that against this, right? If you have a little bit of programming knowledge, you can automate this entire process, making a request to this server with that details and taking responses from it, right? So this is all random. which is not professional. In case of professional pen test, scoping and limiting your test to that specific scope is very important. Note down this point in your notes. After taking down the scope, you are going to perform the actual pen test, means the exploitation. Of course, this one involves a lot of other steps. We'll talk about that in the next slide. The final and most important thing is reporting. Success of your pen test completely depends on how good you followed these 3 steps, right? So reporting is yet another key point. Even for the CPENT exam, your report that you submit after 24 hours of exam. So after 24 hours of exam, you will have 1 week time to prepare report. That itself is a clear indication the importance that is given for reporting. Until and unless you are able to put every finding in the report, my organization will not be able to fix them, right? Your goal is not to destroy. Your goal of pen test is to help that organization identify all the loopholes, right? So report is going to help that organization find out all different ways to fix it. So please note down these three points into your running notes. Every attack that we are going to discuss, including the box that I have shared with you, I will explain that with these 3 steps. Whenever I say pen test, you must prepare a template and get ready for performing the actual attack using all these 3 steps. So this is nothing but the second step or the second part of the overall process, right? After understanding the scope, after getting some details related to the network that you are allowed to test, for example, you are hired by Amazon to perform a pen test. So Amazon have a lot of different products to deal with. They have a customer database, they have some financial database, they have product related database, right? So they will provide you certain details on what is your scope. You are allowed to perform the test on customer database, right? So that is the scope. While performing the pen test, you will follow these 3 steps. Sorry, the 3 steps. What are the 3 steps? Starting with pre-attack phase. So simply enumerating the server, knowing what is the operating system running on that server, identifying what kind of information this particular server may have. Let us consider that it is kind of internal pen test. You are part of the Amazon environment and you are doing the test there itself. So somehow you identified operating system, you have identified the server, you know that there are critical ports like SSH, FTP, RDP are open, right? So identification and confirming all those details fall under this pre-exploitation phase. The next phase is post-attack, actual exploitation phase or attack phase. Based on the vulnerabilities that you identified in this phase, your vulnerability analysis is also going to fall under the pre-attack phase. So we are going to consider the attack phase as the actual exploitation step. Let us imagine that you successfully managed to exploit the user database of Amazon as part of your pen testing engagement. Now there are certain limits. So how you can prove that you actually compromised that server? Are you going to grab all the usernames, passwords and tell Amazon that I compromised the server and you are going to add all these details in the report? No, this is not part of the process. As a proof of concept, even you as a penetration tester, you must not cross your actual limits. You are going to prove this by simply grabbing 1 or 2 usernames and their concerned details and keeping this as part of the report and informing the actual authorities to get some kind of rectification for this. Got it? So this is very much similar to what are the 5 steps that you have learned in CEH, like actual general hacking steps. I hope you all remember that. Information gathering, scanning, gaining access, maintaining access, removing traces, right? But briefly into 3 different steps. After completing this exploitation, I mean, you identified, compromised that data, Amazon's user database, and grabbed some kind of user information. As part of post-attack phase, there can be n number of things that you can do. For example, privilege escalation fall under this stage, pivoting fall under this stage. For example, you will test whether this user database server is connected to some other servers. Is it dual homed? If there is a possibility, can I pivot to some other servers from this particular user database server? These are the checks that we'll do. But one of the core parts or core things that you must do, I mean, compulsory things that you must do as part of post exploitation is reverting back the state to normal, which we will not do in case of regular hacking or as black hat hacking. What is this? As part of this exploitation process, you may have dumped some exploits on the target server. As part of post-attack phase, you need to remove all those things, clear all the logs, and set everything to normal before you leave the actual environment. So we will take you through this process based on that box so that you will have an idea. And at the end of this particular training duration, we'll see how we can prepare a report for the same so that you will have a perfect example to understand the actual steps and proceed on doing it on regular basis. One thing that I actually do for practice purpose, because reporting or else some kind of standards that we need to follow are not kind of very regular, or else it is not that easy to remember and then proceed with that every time. Actually, I can prepare my own template, and whenever I am going to test a mission, even it is a CTF competition or else a simple mission that I want to compromise, I'll follow the same strategy. That makes us habituate to this process, right? Which gives us success in case of pen testing environments, right? So please note that it is not a non-procedural thing that can help us in pen testing, right? A standard process to be followed, a standard steps to be followed, and keeping defenses in mind, and also taking care of resources or infrastructure. We must respect the infrastructure that you are going to test, right? So as we have the skill to compromise or perform a DOS attack, yes, I want to DOS the server and close that server. Hello, this is not a black hat mindset that we must have. The pen testing mindset that I was talking about is this one single thing. With that thing said, we are almost there at the end. So my dear friends, concluding it with different standards, whatever standard that you follow, again, this depends on the organization or the client that you are going to work for or make an agreement with. As part of the engagement, we are going to engagement means not that engagement. This engagement is different. So as part of the pen testing engagement, right, we agree upon specific standards and confirm all the details well before you proceed with the first step, which is pre-exploitation phase. Final points to grab from this particular module. I hope I gave you enough examples to make this point very clear. And one single tip that I can give you about this course is, after this module, is it is more practical intense, as we have mentioned a number of times so far. Don't take theory more serious, right? Because you're already strong with the fundamentals from CEH. Now, please take steps ahead on thinking about how to apply them. The only request that I beg from all of you throughout this training duration is to think and come up with your questions on how and where you face difficulty when you apply the tool, so that I can help you out in correcting those things, right, based on my knowledge. And also we can make it a possibility of discussion so that every one of us are on the same page. So we already discussed a bunch of examples on how and when, what are the steps that we need to take when to perform a pen test. Again, as I told you, quarterly, half yearly, or annually, that based on your organization and what type of pen test it is. It is internal or external or in-housed or outsourced, right? These are all things that will come into point when we talk about when to perform it. Please note down the final point onto your running notes before we proceed towards the second module of this course. Pen testing is not about vulnerability scanning. It is beyond vulnerability scanning. And never ever think that vulnerability identification is the substitute of pen testing. No. By this time, with all different things that we discussed about pen testing, I hope you all got a clear idea of how difficult it can be at times and what are the things that we need to consider. With that thing said, I think we can wrap up this particular module here. My dear friends, any questions that you have from this module, please let me know. We'll answer them before we move on to the second module.
Today, 4 module.
Pardon?
Guys, if you have any doubt, you can clarify.
Any questions from the things that we discussed so far? Great. So one more time, are you all comfortable in understanding? I know that my English is horrible, but if you are able to understand, it's okay, fine. And people hate me because of being very talkative. That helps me at times. So before we proceed on to the second module, one last confirmation. Is it clear? Are you all able to understand? Are you all comfortable in understanding the concepts? If it is moderate, please drop M in the chat. If you feel like it is fast, please drop F in the chat. If you feel like it is very slow and boring, please drop S in the chat. Okay, yes, for. All right, very good. So as mentioned at the beginning point of today's session, so today is kind of a theory day, right? But please wait for me or bear me for this first half. Second half will come with the practical part and a lot of examples. Okay, so don't worry about any of the topics that we are going to discuss as part of theory section, because those are not going to be there in the exam, right? Even the quiz that we are going to conduct on day 2 and day 4 will mainly focus on generic questions. You can never ever go through the recording to find out the answer, or else you cannot go on Google and find out the answer. Okay. So as I told you, my motto for any training is to give the right skill set, because that is what organization will be looking for, right? So if we are able to build that at the beginning point, at the learning stage itself, of course, this is a never ending process. Even after having years of experience, even after doing a lot of pen tests, right? It is not a piece of cake for me all the time, right? We'll face a lot of challenges on the go. So it is never ending learning process. So please make sure that you are able to understand the concept, then only you can answer the quiz questions and also the challenge or the exam that we are going to conduct at the end of this module, right? It will be that easy if you are through with the concept. And one more thing to say, the box that I've shared with you is also not the public one, that is designed specially for you people from my side, right? So you cannot get any walkthrough online, or you cannot get any kind of hints for that particular box. So if you want some hints, you can approach me on my email address, jayanth.b@cartelsoftware.com, or you can happily drop a message in the WhatsApp group. So I'll be more than happy to give you hints and push you further on hacking that particular box. That particular challenge will be active till the end of this particular course. So take your own time. There is no hurry burry. Don't feel like it is kind of punishment that I've given you. Feel like it is a challenge that you are going to face in the organization on your day 1 of appointment. All right, with all that theory stuff said, I'm so happy that you all are enjoying the process, and I'm so happy that you all are able to understand. So my dear friends, for this course, CH is the base, as I said, n number of times. That is the reason why the 3 core tools that we use, right? Wireshark, Metasploit, and Nmap are the ones that will help you to solve the challenge that I have provided. So it is time for hint 1 for that box. I hope people who have already loaded that mission started performing Nmap scan. Yes or no? If you are really excited about it, I think you have already done with Nmap scan on that box. Yes or no? How many of you have did Nmap scan?
Yes, we have done 4080 and 22 is open.
Very good.
And
So I think everyone who is there with that box ready can't resist on knowing what is the flag and how to compromise it. That is the mindset that we must build. I'm so happy that you all are on the track. Very good, very good, very good. Great, great. Yes, yes. Great, Mr. Muthu. You identified that there are 2 ports that are open. Yes, proceed further. There are so many things that you can do, but please don't completely focus on that box, right? If you can do parallel tasks, okay, fine. You can run scans there and then listen to me, right? And if that is not the case, leave it aside. And I beg your attention throughout the session, so you are not going to miss any kind of concept. All right, that's all about CH refresher part. Even in the course material, there is a section for CH refresher. You can actually go on to the iLabs platform and launch the lab that is associated with CH refresher. But I always conduct it in a different way. So the labs again will go with the same practical 1, practical 2, practical 3. In fact, to say, I hate that practical 1, practical 2, practical 3 habit. But we can't avoid all those things because those are the standards that we need to follow to achieve our actual graduation or else some kind of certification at the end. But while learning, we can feel free to adjust our process whatever way we want. So CH refresher in our course will be with that box. So I already launched that and we already started that. So let's move on to the next step. So second module for this course is yet another boring theory section, but let me make it brief. We are not going to spend a lot of time here. So let me take you through this particular section for the next 10 to 15 minutes. That's it. Because we spent a lot of time understanding what is pen test. This must not take a lot of time. So once we wrap up this in the next 15 to 20 minutes, we will be breaking for lunch. So let's begin. Module 2 of this course is all about pen testing, scoping, and engagement. So we already discussed that there are 3 different steps as part of the entire process. The first thing starts with scoping and engagement. Second step is all about exploitation, and the last step is all about reporting. And modules from here on are also framed in the same fashion. So second module will focus on the first step of the process. From third module up until the last 12th, 13th module or so will focus on the exploitation or the actual pen test. And the 14th module will focus on reporting. So without wasting time, what are the things that you need to consider as part of pre-engagement process? My dear friends, I want to keep it very brief. Please make sure that you can access this recorded lecture from from your LMS platform. So you no need to worry about noting down all the points from this particular section. So wherever it is needed, I will mention. You make sure that you put that in your running notes. That is more than enough. All right. So the pre-engagement activities involve the actual meetings that we must make with the client and understand the scope first. Because if we are done with the pen test, we must get some kind of positive response from our client. Of course, whatever activity that we do, our main goal will be of listening for a positive response. We are not going to waste anyone's time under the name of pen testing, right? Or mainly focusing on the outcome, right? Not focusing on the process. So if you are not going to make a proper beginning, it can lead to a lot of creeping at the end. For example, the customer may have a goal on giving you this pen test job. They want to identify what are the critical loopholes that allow attacker to take remote control on the network. For example, that is one serious attack that anyone can perform on your network. Not only that, there can be some authentication related issues. They can actually gain access to the credentials. They can do some kind of DOS attack. They can do social engineering. These are all different types of attacks, but the most critical one that everyone will look forward for will be the remote access. If you can achieve remote access on some servers on the organization, and it is a clear go that attackers can easily compromise the entire network. So understanding the client requirement must be the major focus. How you can go with this understanding? With a frequent meeting and receiving a initial request from the client. Client is going to draft a request for proposal, right? And which includes the purpose, why we are inviting you for pen test, all technical and contract related information, along with the schedules. You cannot go and conduct the test whenever you want, right? There can be a specific duration that they specify, because if you are conducting pen test during the live environment, there can be some false positives that can roll out and may not be good for us to give the right result. And in most of the scenarios, this can the pen test operation that you are performing with the permission can crash certain services because of the attacks that we run. And that can also lead to availability issue, which we don't want to land upon. So as a client, you must include all these details clearly and proceed with the initialization process. Response to this RFP will be from the actual party who is providing pen test. That includes all different details on how to conduct, how we are going to approach, how we are going to conduct the pen test, what is our pricing, what is our methodology, what are the actual strengths and weaknesses, what are the actual goals that we have when we conduct a pen test, and they must also include what is the team's strength. So how many of your experts are going to participate in the pen test? How many of the beginners or else freshers are going to be part of it, right? And so on. As I said, it is a combination of different levels of skills that will give you success. Every time, everything good is also not good at the end, right? So we must always take advantage of combining different mindsets as part of the team. And also our company related details on how many previous pen tests that we have conducted, how many of them are success, right? What is the feedback from those clients and so on. It is same like you purchasing a product on Amazon, you see reviews, you see Google reviews, right? How many of you spend at least a month looking at reviews and YouTube videos like me? Hello? When you are purchasing a product on Amazon or some kind of electronic good, how many of you spend at least 1 month or so on looking at reviews? Not for a single product, but a expensive one. Very good. If I'm not wrong, before joining Reva, you did a lot of research about Reva, right? And if you are not wrong, I think most of you know that it is me who is conducting session from today onwards. You may have did some kind of research regarding who am I? How many of you did that? Okay, very good. Very exciting crowd that I have. Thank you so much, because I also received few requests on LinkedIn yesterday. That gave me that idea that you are really active on applying all the skills. All right. So before we proceed with any kind of pen test, obviously we must look for the best thing in the market, right? So we can't put all our asserts in their hand. This pen testing can be really critical if it is not properly handled. I mean, without proper procedures, you are actually telling them to visit your home and then test, are there any critical resources at your home? For example, you are inviting someone, right, and asking them to look for ways on finding out precious gold or cash or some kind of documents that are at home. So once they perform the test in your premises at your home, it becomes easy for them to know that where you actually put your documents, where you put your gold. Nowadays, it is very simple because most of the YouTubers are doing some home tours, right? So it is really public all the time. But if someone is testing your resource like this, right, the same thing applied in the organization. We call it as a pen test, and we invited them, and they know where your servers are, what kind of operating system they are running, what kind of loopholes they are existing with. Hello, they already know all this information. So if they turn against us, they can cause damage later. Before you patch all these things, they can actually make an agreement with some other competitor and then compromise your resources. Yes or no? So it is not like you will give all your keys to them and do the pen test. So all those things are decided at this initial stage only. That is why scoping and engagement plays a major role in pen testing process. Without proper understanding, without proper restrictions, you will be there at risk at the end, right? So the generic example that we have picked is very easy to understand and remember that importance of scoping and engagement. Preparing the proposal document. So each and every step that you are seeing on the slide right now are the things that we must include in the proposal document. So identifying the scope, right? Adding what kind of methodology that you are following. When I say methodology, at this point, it is all about the standard based test that you are doing, or red teaming kind of operation that you are doing, or else some kind of pen test that involves a mixture of standards and also this, right? We were talking about all those things before, right? So that is to be mentioned as part of this proposal. So we are writing this particular proposal based on the request from the client. So you know what client is looking for. So it is very easy for us to scope out all those details and mention them in the actual report. Next thing is to determine the project deliverables. What are the things that you are going to give out after performing the pen test? So at this point, I want to differentiate both vulnerability analysis and pen test once again. This is quite confusing most of the times. People get confused because these things are commonly combined in most of the organizations. We all know that as you all are employees working for some organization, if you somehow project your skill, or else if your higher official or your manager or someone from the company know that you are master at so and so skill, the next day onwards, you will be the head of that particular team. Yes or no? How many of you have observed these situations? Let us consider that you are a network engineer. Somehow people know that you are master or you are learning some kind of hacking or pen testing skill, right? Immediately the company is going to decide setting up a new pen testing domain or else a team, and then you will be leading that team. Very good. Most of the employees who are part of this session actually observed this, right? So VAPT is evolved from the same habit. If you carefully do a research on who are generally recruited as the penetration testers, you will see less candidates are recruited from a random interviewing process or standard process of interviewing that a company follow. More amount of candidates are working in this team because of some kind of previous experience with the same company, or they are referenced by someone, right, from the same company. This is the general habit. Why I'm talking about all these things? Because when you are allowing someone to do pen test, as I said in the previous example, you are putting all the keys, right, all the secrets in their hand. Can I recruit someone, a random person on the road, as a pen tester in my company? No, not at all. People always come up with an argument. Of course, this is still a debatable topic. Why freshers are not allowed? I'm not sure about what other domains are, but in the field of security, especially with pen testing, right, critical resources are shared with these employees. I cannot trust them on one single interview, or else 5 to 10 minutes of discussion and also bargaining for the salary. No, I must refer n number of things to confirm that he is a perfect fit for my organization to fix any kind of loopholes and not to act against me, right? This is one of the reasons I feel like less amount of freshers are recruited by the companies directly into pen test. When we talk about pen testing, vulnerability assessment or vulnerability management is also a combination most of the times. When you are searching for pen testing jobs, you will always see VAPT. This is bringing up that confusion. VAPT means both vulnerability assessment, vulnerability management, and also penetration testing. They are not synonyms. You can't use vulnerability management for pen testing for vulnerability management. They are not replaceable. They are two different activities. The point that I must stress, and you must also note down right now, is after completing vulnerability assessment, you will generate something called as vulnerability assessment or vulnerability scan report. This report is going to tell what are the vulnerabilities that are existing. Same as what I did in the previous example for VSFTPD or else remote test or RDP thing, right? We didn't conclude it there telling that this is vulnerable, this is exploitable. If I put all these identifications, all the details that we have identified into a report, we call it as a vulnerability analysis report. That's it. Technically speaking, there can be a number of wordings that you may come across, but to keep it very simple and easy to remember, this is the thing. That is the fact, right? So all the findings that you have did for vulnerabilities, you put that in the report and we'll call it as a vulnerability analysis report. Mostly in a big organization, it is not possible to manually do this on thousands of missions. Taking the same exact VSFTPD example that we did. We took somewhere around 2 to 3 minutes or 5 minutes, or we spent that 5 to 10 minutes on testing 2 different services. In an organization, typically you will have 10,000 missions, thousands of missions, right? Where this is not possible to go and test individual devices one after the other. That is why vulnerability scanners mostly come with this functionality of report generation. Vulnerability scanner will scan for the common tests, and you will take that as a base to perform manual tests wherever needed, avoiding few other things which are not so compulsory. All these are part of vulnerability assessment only. Right? There is no conclusion. There is no guarantee that they are exploitable. Acting as a base, pen testing proceeds further with the information that is there in the document, vulnerability analysis or vulnerability scan document that we have provided. Again, it depends. If it is a white box pen test, you will provide this particular report to someone. So they will take that and perform the pen test only for those identifications that you do. If it is black box pen test, you are not going to give it to them. You want them to go and test it on their own. You are not going to tell them. It is like you have the answer sheet, but you are not going to tell them the actual answers, right? So after completing the test, you will go and compare whether he wrote the same exact answer as you or not. So if it is same, then you are happy because you did the perfect job. If it is not same, it is time to level up your skills. So each black box, white box will have their own advantages and disadvantages. But here our point is to understand the difference between these two. Based on the report, the deliverables will be different. This is one parameter that you need to consider, whether it is vulnerability assessment or pen test. And in case of performing the test on black box, it is different. White box, it is different, as I said. And what kind of pen test also differs. What are the deliverables that you are going to give? For example, if you are testing a cloud-based environment, the report must include a different detail when compared with the Wi-Fi pen test. How many open signals are there on your network, right? How many of them are crackable with a simple password, right? I think you all are part of Wi-Fi related concepts too, as part of CEH course, right? The previous module. And you already have that idea, like you can't brute force every hash that you have captured or every handshake that you have captured, right? So there are certain restrictions. If I'm able to capture, that may not be a vulnerability, but if I'm able to crack the password, that can be considered as a vulnerability for sure. Hello, are you understanding? So this differs. So putting all these details as part of the report and submitting it, right, will be different for different pen tests that we conduct. So understanding what are the deliverables, what you are going to give must be very clear. That is why before starting the training, your university told you that these are the modules that we will conduct. These are the trainings that you will get. These are the documents that we'll share, right? Same habit in case of pen test. Next thing is project schedule. You can't simply extend your duration. For example, you are hired by SBI or any popular bank for pen test. There can be a number of resources again with SBI. You may be testing their internal network, or you may be testing their mobile app. You may be testing their web application, right? So at times all three will be conducted by the same party. No doubt in it. Same as what you have seen. Like if you are expert, you are a pen tester for me. You are the vulnerability analyst for me. You are the network engineer for me. If watchman is not there, you are the watchman for me. Hello. Are you understanding? If you are capable of doing everything, right, you are all-rounder. So based on the schedule or based on what are the tests that you are doing, is it mobile or network or web for SBI, you must set a schedule. Network pen tests generally last for somewhere around 9 weeks, right, or so. The mobile-based pen test may take a little bit less time when compared with the network pen test. Web application pen test may take a little bit more time than the mobile pen test, right? May last somewhere around 4 weeks or 5 weeks, right? And in this case, the time also depends on how you are performing it, because few things you can conduct remotely. So we'll prepare a jump box, or as we call them as a honey box, right? We set up them in the organization network and we'll connect to that machine over internet and perform internal test from there, which is completely remote. We are not going to visit the premises and do. But if the network pen test includes social engineering, for sure you must be there. So physical presence is important there. So in that case, the timings may differ. So you must understand all these ins and outs and then mention how much time you are going to take. You can't switch between timings. You can't extend the duration at all, right? Because client is providing the actual resource, right, for that specific time. After that, they may not provide you that resource. Got it? So going with that schedule is one thing. Next, staffing, as I mentioned before, a group of experts, freshers, team from different areas. One good example that I can give you is web application pen test. Let us imagine that your organization is applying for web application pen test. So I will not only look for people who are experts in identifying XSS vulnerability, SQL injection vulnerability, and so on. But I will also look for candidates who are experts in web development. Why? In any organization, there will be a tough fight between security engineer and developer. How many of you agree with this? Developer will say yes, security engineer will say no. Administrator will say yes for a service, security engineer will say no for that service. Very good. I think a lot of you have experienced this. And I think most of you are system engineers. Then I think I'm extremely sorry. I'm not pointing out your opinions here, right? This is just example. Don't take it serious. So don't come to some kind of conclusion on my opinions. Okay, it is just an example. So from the developer point of view, it is correct, right? Say server is somewhere at the 20th floor. And his table, I mean, network engineer's actual desk is somewhere at the ground floor. There is a simple modification that he must do. They must update some kind of service or else change some configuration, right? Is he going to run there onto the 20th floor and do it? It is your valuable time you're wasting. You are pushing him to go and do it there. It is not all about you are paying them, you must do that, but it is all about the resource, time as a resource that you are wasting. So what the network engineer can say or developer can say, I want to enable this remote desktop service, and that too, because of a lot of restrictions that I have kept for a user account, I want to enable remote user to remotely log in. But as a network engineer, he may not be aware of what are the risks that are associated. This is where the actual story begins and the fight begins. The security engineer, at the first glance, will pick this as a serious loophole. If and only if this service is publicly available. I mean, if the network administrator is accessing this service from the ground floor, from the same building, it's okay, fine. But he is trying to access this or set the configuration in such a way that he can access it from his home. Or when he is going on a vacation, he must take access from that internet connection and do it. Then it can be really serious, right? But as a network engineer, he may not be aware of that. As a security engineer, it is your responsibility to tell all ins and outs, right? So when I talk about this staffing requirement, we need to have all this mixture of people because each and every one's requirement for handling the resources will be different, right? Company is running for multiple products, and each and every product related team will have a different requirement. End of the day, it is all about security. That is the reason why security engineers must be there with all different skills, and it is highly impossible. That is why teams that you recruit for pen testing must include everyone so that you can collect all these opinions. So this is for external pen test that you are opting for. But in case of someone who is inside the organization, team inside the organization, will have blue team, red team, and purple team. Blue team will always look for defenses. Red team will always look for bypassing the defenses. Purple team will make the understanding between these two teams. Because blue team people will not show interest on telling how they defended, right? And they are not going to share the technique with red team people. And obviously the opposite side, red team people will not show interest on sharing their techniques for bypassing. So that is not going to take us anywhere. So the organization will have a purple team who will make this basic understanding between these two teams to help them achieve the actual fix to complete the process. Final thing is all about pricing. You may price it based on the time that you spend or as the components that you're testing, the team that you are picking up, and so on. This varies for different companies, different level, by considering different parameters. In the end, it is all about preparing this report, making a final meeting, and then submitting this report to the client. That's the overall process for the scoping and engagement. I hope you got a brief idea of what we are going to do as part of part 1 of this entire process. With this thing said, we are finally there at the end of module 2. There's a lot of theory that is present in the material that you can actually refer if you want to have in-depth overview of this. But for now, I'm going to leave that for you to do research. With that thing said, my dear friends, it is time for us to move on to exploitation steps and the actual pen test. So it's time for a short break. Let's break for lunch and we'll see you all after lunch with module 3, all about open source information grabbing. All right then.
So could you share me the slides?
Slides? Okay,
Yes.
fine. In fact, I generally don't share slides because slides is kind of shortcut version of my content that is there in the material. Anyhow, we'll do that. So I will be sharing this PPT with you, and can you please upload that onto the LMS?
Yes, sir.
All right. So we'll do that in the. I will do that evening or else tomorrow. Is that fine?
Yes, sir. Okay.
All right. So generally, how much time it will take to upload this recording onto the LMS?
Sir, I can do it by end of the day.
Okay, fine. Okay, then I will be generating it and I will be sharing it by the end of the session so that you can upload it along with the recording directly.
Okay.
Right. Thank you. All right, my dear friends, let's break for lunch. We'll see you all at 2:10.